I suspect it's going to be us chickens here tonight. Unless, were you anticipating anybody coming for public? All right, so you guys want to stand to the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So Sabrina, I'm gonna just pass over any introductory type stuff and just launch right into, I guess for the record, we do need to say this is to open the Natrona County Planning and Zoning Commission for March 10th, 2026 at 5:32 p.m. And the first thing on the agenda, well, the only thing on the agenda, well, I'm sorry. We did have the minutes of the February 10th, 2026 P&Z meeting for consideration. Did you guys have a chance to review those? Chair would entertain a motion for approving those minutes.
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second for approving the minutes as prepared. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes as prepared for February 10th signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So we have unanimous approval of the minutes. So I guess I do need to introduce Maddie. Maddie Pennington is the new the new planning and zoning planning technician. So welcome. Sabrina's expressed how happy she is to have Maddie on board and look forward to good stuff. So welcome. And Ashley, I don't want to pass over you either, so hi. Okay, so launch into the warehousing discussion. May we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Tonight we're discussing the 2022 zoning resolution warehouse amendment. So it's a text amendment requested by the planning department to remove the term warehousing from the wholesale distribution, warehousing, and storage section in 4.08.14. The request includes adding section 4.08.14 to only describe warehousing. Section 4.08.15 will be created and named wholesale distribution and storage. The table of allowable uses for warehousing will be created to include areas where this use should be permitted. So the zones that it affects are on there, but it's probably easier to name the ones that it does not affect. So that would be manufactured housing area, PUDs, and mountain. It's actually just for Hogadon, the use in there. Minimum lot size is requested at 2 acres. The existing land use is for residential buildings with no ability to build a warehousing unit. The adjacent land uses are various. So for a zoning text amendment, the approval criteria is that it's consistent with purposes and organization of the zoning resolution. It improves the consistency of the zoning resolution with other provisions of the zoning resolution, provides flexibility for landowners within standards that clearly define desired character. It is necessary to address changing conditions, public necessity, and or state or federal regulation. It is consistent with the county development plan and is consistent with other adopted county resolutions. So here is the requested change to take out warehousing from this section and change it to 0.15 instead of 0.14. No other sections from this would be removed. No other requirements would be changed in this particular section. The section that we are proposing is to define warehousing as the storage of personal property within an enclosed structure for use by the property owner. This includes but is not limited to properties such as recreational vehicles, all-terrain vehicles, boat or equipment. Minimum lot size for warehousing is 2 acres and cannot exceed the maximum lot coverage per the zone district found in Chapter 2 zoning districts. This definition, so in our list of definitions under warehousing, it currently states that warehousing includes mini storage. We would remove that section from there, from that definition.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Your previous slide, where'd you come up with 2 acres?
So that was, it was originally proposed at 5, and 2 was what was decided upon based on speaking with commissioners, code enforcement, residents who have asked for this in the areas that they're in. That's where the 2 acres kind of came from.
I guess a question, if it had any tie-ins to future septic tank leach fields or.
Mr. Chairman, that was not a consideration. That's a good point, but it wasn't consideration on this. This is a lot of the residents that have come in are desire to have a dry structure, maybe have electric on it, but they aren't really looking at this being a future residence for themselves. Not that they couldn't sell it in the future and some future owner could put a residence on it, but that wasn't a consideration.
So it seems another deal that I've read about in planning literature recently is they call it the barn residences and things
Barn
like that.
dominiums.
Yeah. So that's where I was wondering if a septic tank leach field consideration might need to be made.
Mr. Chairman, that could definitely, usually a minimum of 2 acres is what the health department has communicated to us. That's a good lot size for a future septic because there's options on where that septic can be located.
Depends on the layout of
It
and how
does.
big the barn is.
Good. Yes.
Question. So under the warehousing definition, is livestock included in that?
So, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Schulte, that wasn't meant to be prohibited, and that's why the terminology includes but not limited to. We could add livestock in there, livestock barn or some sort of something to that effect that would clarify that's included. But that's why the included but not limited to was in there, because it wasn't meant to exclude livestock. So if somebody wanted to build a barn for their horses or for their goats or I don't know, whatever animal they might decide to have, that wasn't meant to be excluded from being able to do that under this.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple questions too, but I don't know if Ms. Kemper, you want to go through the full staff report and then we can get into some of the questions after that, or?
I can continue if you all would like. I don't think we have many slides. There's only 400 of them, so if you want
I
to.
mean, this is almost like a workshop with no audience. So,
Somebody could be watching online.
well,
Y'all are
they're
acting
watching
up.
no, I don't. They should be here if they.
Okay. So you want to continue?
Just again, the exceptions, Ogadon and
And we're getting ready to go to that slide if you want to do that.
Yep.
So these are the slides. So the RC at the top is Hogadon. That RC is a recreational zone. couldn't tell you why it exists because literally the only place it is Hogadon, which is the city of Casper ownership and jurisdiction. So I can't tell you why that's there. The other one is manufactured home parks, because generally those are smaller lots. A manufactured home park is more the small lots that are, it could be 10 acres total, but they're meant to have separate lots, and that wasn't the target of this zone. So this is where we have our permitted areas, and then the ZCs are our zone certificates, which means they have to come through a process in our office, and there are different things we have to look through. One is to make sure the minimum lot size, because a lot of our MR1 and MR2s are actually not the minimum lot size in those zones currently. They're existing non-conforming. And then the same thing with UR and UMR. The minimum lot size in both of those can be dependent upon if they have public utilities or not. And then some of them are half-acre lots, so they can be a minimum of 9,000 square feet if they have public utilities, and we didn't think it was appropriate to put this in that area. And
That
so,
was confusing. Can you
for which part?
in, you were talking about the ZC.
So the zone certificate, there's a different process, so it's not just permitted. They can apply for a building permit under the permitted uses. And then through our online system, it comes to the zoning. So we approve the zoning, we approve the setbacks. So if the setbacks have to be 25 feet and they say on their site plan it's 10 feet, we have to address that, and we say, you need to change your site plan and move your building to accommodate the correct setbacks. And that's
Somewhere
in the
there you
permitted.
mentioned half an acre.
Right, so that's in the permitted uses. So in like UMR, some of the MRs, there are half-acre lots because they're existing non-conforming lots. So they're smaller than what they should be, except that they've been that way for years. And there's nothing we can do to change that because somebody owns all that property around.
Grandfather.
Yes.
They're not gonna apply to them anyway.
Right, they are ineligible to have this on their property. So if I have a half-acre lot on the mountain and I want to build just a shed on there so I can store my snowmobile, I cannot do that under this warehousing terminology.
Even at 2 acres, even if you have a 2 acre lot?
2 acres, that's where the zone change or the zone certificate comes in,
Okay.
that we would go through and look and see what's around it, make sure it complies, make sure it fits in the area. There's a criteria that we have to meet to say it's okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So we can have this. A denial is what Mr. Christofferson had mentioned when we were talking before about not allowing a barn to be built, or we can have something nicer that actually fits in the neighborhood because it's permitted.
Would this address the one we dealt with, Phillips Barn? Would this fall now, would it fall under that, this?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. White, the one that wanted the zone change for the horses, yes, he would be able to apply under this and build his barn and not have to build a residence and move. Or, he didn't want to live there from what his agent said. He just wanted his horses to be able to roam on his property and be in shelter.
Sabrina, I've got a couple questions, it's a rural residential zone. And so I think there it's permitted, right? It would be a permitted use. And so I think the minimum lot size is 5 acres for rural residential. And I think I've got it written down here, the maximum lot coverage is 50% of the lot area. So is there anything that would stop somebody building, a building if they wanted to, that's half the size of the lot, like 2.5 acres?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. McNutt, no, but they can also build a house that same size.
Right, but if it's just I guess the question I have is, if it's just a shed to store things, and now 50% of that lot, which comes out to be like, I think it's like 100,000 square foot. So it could be a massive structure. And now it's storing all sorts of things that they have. And maybe, the other unintended consequence I could see is that over time, they start storing their buddies' stuff, and maybe they take a little money to do it. I'm not saying that would happen, but it could. And now you have this large structure in a residential, urban residential neighborhood that's taking up a huge footprint of this lot that nobody lives there, and they're just kind of going in and out, hauling things in and out. And so I just wonder if that could be a problem. And then the last thing is, I don't think there's a minimum height requirement for additional, at least it doesn't state that in here. I didn't see it for additional units or ADUs, or I'm not sure what we're calling these. So it doesn't seem like there's a height requirement. I didn't find one anyways.
Mr. Chairman and Mr. McNutt, so there's not a height requirement, but there's not really a height requirement on any of it. On even houses, it's more the fire department and what the fire can do. But on most of our zoning, there's not.
It does say, at least in rural residential, it's a 36-foot height for residential structures.
If you look at most of them, they actually don't have a height requirement.
But what's to stop somebody from building, this massive steel building, which houses all sorts of trailers and whatever, next to someone's, house or property?
And that could be a problem. But it also could be where code enforcement gets involved, because neighbors like to tell on each other sometimes. And that's why we have code enforcement, because, if things get out of hand, at one time, if you're storing your buddy's stuff, yeah, it doesn't say that that's permitted, but if your buddy just needs his boat stored, and is that a problem? I mean, it doesn't say that you can do it, but at the same time, how much are we digging into people's business?
Well, I agree, but I think these are some of the unintended consequences that could occur if something like this goes through. So I'm wondering if maybe some more thought might need to go into it, or like we have, some sort of maximum size for personal storage. I think everybody should have the ability to, if they buy a lot, they should be able to put something like this on there, especially in some of these areas. I'm just wondering if it could lead to some other problems that we haven't maybe thought through. That's all.
And that, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, that it could be the case. It could be something that we implement and we come back and we put restrictions on it because we try it and it doesn't quite work, or we nix this plan and we come up with another one. I mean, there are a lot of options. You guys can make an amendment to it tonight, suggest that amendment to the commissioners. It goes to them in April. We have options. This is not like you can table it if you want. Doesn't have to go. You guys have options. Just like I said, we can try it, see what we get.
Like a recipe for disaster, though.
So I would, I got my memory jarred a bit. When I used to work at the city of Casper, this height thing came up in an unanticipated way, and what it ended up doing was this building's out off CY, and it blocked the mountain view from, it's like 50 feet high, like back in the Fort Casper area. And I remember the planner at the time saying that was the worst oversight that ever happened under his watch, was realizing how big that thing was going to be and what it was going to do to the neighborhood. So, nice catch, I think.
Because you could apply for, if you had a restriction, but you had a legitimate reason for doing it taller, you could apply for a variance from that.
Mr. Chair, I was wondering if we could also talk a little bit about zoning certificates and just how that works. again, because it applies to those mountain residential properties. And I don't know that somebody would buy a lot up there just to store stuff, but you did mention snowmobiles, and that seems like a really good thing to do if I have to haul my snow machines up there. But at the same time, is it still that same issue where somebody could, store their personal stuff, and it turns out it's not their personal stuff. It's all their buddies' snow machines too, and they build a large, metal building up there. And next door you've got, somebody that lives there full time. And now they've got this large structure next to them. Nobody's living there, and it's just a building. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying, is that what we want?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, so on the mountain, we have lots of people who have asked, can I just build, because they don't want to live up there, because they don't want that drive. That's not why they have property on the mountain. Some people, that is where they want to live year round. Obviously, there's plenty of people that do. And that could be the case. That, I have a barn now and I got my own stuff in it, and then, hey Chad, you want to store your stuff in there? And hey Ray, you guys want to come off and leave it here? You don't have to take it back down that mountain with you. That's a icy road. Just leave it here. We'll come up next weekend anyway, so why not just leave it here for the winter? And you don't need to take it back to your garage for the summer, because why would you put it in your way? There could be unintended consequences.
So on that section where we have the different zoning designations, where it's permitted, where you have Ps, is there any special setbacks we need? Or we just follow setbacks as if they were residents?
So yeah, Mr. Commissioner, we all the setbacks would be the same. All of the zones have specific setbacks, so all of them have setbacks they would have to comply with. I want to say that SR is not supposed to be up here. I'm going to look real quick. When I talked to the commissioners, I believe they wanted that SR changed to ZC, and I may have failed to do that on there.
Suburban residential. Correct.
Yes. Let's see if I can find it real quick, but I will look at that one.
So I guess the question is, do we need to talk about special setbacks for these kind of things?
Or size. Do you want to set a size requirement? Because maybe Mr. White wants to build a 6,000 square foot building, but Mr. McNutt only wants him to build a 5,000 square foot building. I mean, do we really want to set a size? Do we not?
Size, setback, and height.
Just refresh my memory. Can you kind of go through the process again, the difference between P and ZC?
So these,
Or the variances between in the process?
so permitted if someone were to come in and want to build a shop on a 5-acre lot, they would submit their building plans to the building department. And then they go through their process, make sure the application's complete, and then it comes over to zoning through our online system. And we check the setbacks, the size, make sure it's permitted per our chart of accounts. And then if it's good, if all the setbacks are good and it's permitted use, then we approve it and it gets sent on.
Departmental review.
Yeah, yeah. And then if it's a zone change, once it gets to us, we look at this and we're like, oh, or a zone certificate. And so then we have another process that we have in our resolution under our zone certificate. And then there's a completeness review, and there's different things that we have to go through to make sure it complies. And then we have to actually give them a zoning certificate that says this complies with the use you're asking to do.
Be where any kind of restrictions fall in this CC.
Yes.
Yes, something to give you a little bit to kind of hang your hat on as you're reviewing these things. That's why I was curious what criteria you use for the zoning certificate. Because if it's not much, then somebody could come in again and propose something that's really crazy, and you don't have a lot of defense if you think it's a bad idea. So maybe putting some criteria in there to give you a little bit more ability to, you know, I guess defend against some crazy things happening.
So there's an approval criteria that the use has to comply with the whole resolution. It has to comply with subdivision resolution, the county health department rules. It's in substantial conformance with all standards or conditions, complies with relevant standards. That's why it's an extra step, because there's a lot of things it has to comply with. If we don't have height requirements in any of our zones, there's nothing to comply with. But there's also nothing that a house would have to comply with either. So it has those same compliance criteria.
You might just want to look, especially for the rural residential, because there is a residential height requirement. At least what I was looking at before I came in. And as far as for non-residential structures, it has an NA next to it, so it doesn't appear that it's got a height requirement for the non-residential structures. So just something maybe to look at.
You said rural residential.
Yes.
It does not have a height requirement.
Okay. Yeah, max building height 36 feet for residential structures. Maybe I copied something wrong.
This is in all of the things that were passed in December, under our resolution from December.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe that's what I got it from. I took it from the Word document because it was easier to cut and paste out of. Is that not correct then?
That might not be.
It wasn't one of the things we changed though. I don't remember.
We did change some of that. We did.
So now there's no height requirement.
Not on many of them.
Okay.
Because there were multiple comments and multiple
Okay.
pages that I had when I was going through in the first place on why do we have a height requirement.
Okay.
And so that was chosen to be removed.
Okay.
Sabrina, I have a question. So when you go through your process for the ZC, can you give me like a couple of examples of where you wouldn't approve an application?
So, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, not the lots that are undersized. Of course, if they're under 2 acres, if it's 1.9 acres, it's going to be questionable. Depends on what's around it. If it's on the mountain and it's surrounded by trees and maybe there's an open space in the middle, maybe we can say yes. We have a little bit of leeway in our regulations on what we can approve. That's off. There's not a lot that we can say, okay, it's fine. We don't have to go through a big process. I like that it's minimal. So it's like somebody wants to split a lot in urban ag and it's 19.9999 acres and it has to be 10 each. We'll probably approve it because it's pretty darn close and it rounds up to 20. Things like that we try to work with people a lot because we really want people to be able to do what they want, but we also want to consider the neighbors and what the residents around that area also want. We recently had a couple that wanted to split a 40-acre lot into a 10 and a 30-acre lot. They had covenants that said they couldn't. The neighbors got together and said, we don't want you to do this. They had no HOA. They don't pay any HOA fees. They have no board. So they were like, well, as far as our regulations are concerned, you can do it. But the neighbors called and said, we don't want this. And we will dispute it. And so we talked to the owners and they're like, we're not interested in making enemies with our neighbors. We just thought if we could, we would. But we talked to both parties and they ended up saying, okay, we're not going to do it. It's not just that property. We kind of look at everything around. Because like I said, we want neighbors to get along. It'd be great if they all did. They don't always. So I don't know, really to answer your question, because I don't have an application in front of me, but if I had somebody that wanted to build the little shack, I'd encourage them to build the nicer building. Because that's the whole point of like a new build, is that it doesn't look like this thing going out.
So we had a deal like
2026.
that in the last year and a half out there off 33 Mile Road, if you recall. 10 acres or something like that. And next door neighbor had his house, living in his house, happy with where his house is. And the next door neighbor, apparently they didn't get along or something, so he wants to build a barn with minimal setbacks, as close to the house as he could get. So when the guy walks out the front door, he sees, and so something else you might want to consider is architectural requirements for proximity to existing homes or something like that. I mean,
Mr.
you can get some pretty plain Jane stuff that I would think detract from value of property.
And Mr. Chairman, that's a good point, and we have people that do that. And that's why we have setbacks, but there is nothing we can do about that because the setbacks are the setbacks that you guys have approved, that the commissioners have approved, that's actually been approved for a pretty long time. I don't think those setbacks have actually changed since the 2000 resolution.
Maybe
So-
consider some kind of architectural.
We don't have that on
Compatibility.
houses. That's the other thing. You don't have structural on houses unless you live in a certain neighborhood that has those regulations.
So that actually happened. That was out there, like I said, off 33 Mile Road. Most people were mad. You remember that, Ray? You were here, check. Yeah, I forget the name of that road that runs perpendicular to 33 Mile. Same thing was happening. Or that very thing was happening. They didn't get along. And
Some of
somebody
them
wanted to
don't.
build their deal just so that it irked the next door neighbor
Mhm.
the most possible.
And that's where it becomes a civil matter, and the sheriffs have to deal with that because that's out of our hands. If they meet our requirements, then they meet our requirements. It's no different than them trying to block a road off and put a gate up across the roads because they've now separated. They were in the same HOA, but they've separated HOAs and don't want you coming this way, and you're going to have to go that way on that crappy road because we don't want you on our road. I mean, it happens.
So I guess the suggestion is to bring that to the commissioner's attention so that they fully understand unintended consequences of creating this new warehouse.
And we will absolutely verbalize all of this to them, your concerns.
One other question I had on the definition for warehousing, Sabrina, do you want to add,
Trailer house. Now,
let's see, is it up there? I think it,
it's split over.
let's see, let me scroll down.
And they had a
I
trailer.
think it said the storage,
what-
storage of materials
that's
or
what I want.
equipment
No.
within an enclosed building.
Thanks, sir.
Does it need a, do we need to add personal property in the definition?
Mr. Chairman and
Is
Mr.
that gonna
McNutt,
complicate-
would you suggest taking the personal out, so storage of,
No, right now,
Property.
at least as it's written here, it says this, it would, the current definition, and this is with the strike through, the storage of materials and equipment within enclosed building, that's the definition of warehousing. And I don't know if this is gonna conflict with other places in the zoning resolution, but, because, you make a point earlier, up above, in the, under warehousing, so you have warehousing, it's defined as the storage of personal property within an enclosed structure for use by the property owner. And then below, there's another definition. I don't know if this goes in like an appendix or something. I think it does. And that definition doesn't include personal property. And so I'm just saying, do do you want to include personal property?
Are
I'm not
you,
making any sense.
no.
Okay,
Are you
well-
talking about like this, the first bullet?
Not that definition. I'm talking about, it looks like what you included in our packet, there is an appendix with definitions.
Okay,
I think that's what they are.
let me scroll there, please.
Yeah.
Okay, so, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, the definitions are generally a little bit more broad. And then when you go to the section, it gives you more detail.
Sure. Okay.
And that was the point behind that, is that all we'd have to do is take out that mini storage and then the storage of materials or equipment in enclosed building.
Yeah.
It was not changing the entire definition, it was just taking out that one part there. And then you can go in that.
So somebody
detail.
couldn't say, well, the definition doesn't include personal property, because it seems like that's a big, that's kind of a big component to what we're talking about. And so could somebody just say, well, the definition doesn't include personal property? So you're saying the longer version kind of supersedes.
Yes, and a lot of our definitions are like that, kind of give you a general idea, and then you go to the details and say, okay, well, what can I do?
Okay.
So Sabrina, under the definitions under warehousing, where you crossed off warehousing includes mini storage, would it make sense to just add personal back into that sentence?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we could add that
Would that,
in.
that wouldn't conflict with the rest of the language, right?
I don't believe so, no.
That might answer your question.
Yeah, exactly. I think just to make sure there's no confusion, and it's just, 2 words.
And if you're editing that line anyway, maybe additional edit.
So you're suggesting add personal property into that?
Is that what you want this to be? Is that what you wanted it to read as?
That was the idea, was for not to be a business.
Then
We're not
I
trying to
think
have a
that would-
business in a residential section that doesn't allow a business.
I think that would give you a little more leverage in dealing with those questions.
And then I don't want to keep piling on, but you say this is something else that occurred to me. So if it's personal property, people aren't going to be leasing this out. They're not going to be renting out the storage, correct? That's is that it's just their stuff, not building a commercial thing or something to be leased out.
So ideally, you don't rent out the bedrooms in your home. It's ideally the same thing. Can you rent out the bedrooms in your home?
Well, people do.
They do. They're called Airbnbs and Verbos, and
Yeah.
they do it all the time. And we don't have any regulations for that. Not at the moment. We don't specifically address, hey, Mr. McKnight, you can't rent out your 3 bedrooms in your home because your kids are gone.
And I'm not saying we should. I'm just saying maybe it just requires some additional thinking through these sorts of things, because I could see somebody like leasing out Casper Mountain, leasing out their place the season or something like that. Especially if you don't have a lot of good ways to enforce things like that.
And that's why we did put the personal property in there. So ideally, it's not, I can rent out my home at any time because there's nothing that says I can't. It's not meant to be leased out to someone else.
Chad, you're concerned about extra traffic, is that, or extra people around the place, or what?
Yeah, I think kind of like sort of creep, over time, where when you have a residence, and again, I'm not arguing that we should go back. We shouldn't have these, this change in the zoning resolution, but when you have a residence on there, it sort of changes the dynamic a little bit. Now you've got a storage building on there, and again, just going by currently what we're talking about, it could be a very large one with a lot of things being stored there. And so you now have a person who bought their property, they live there, and they didn't sign up for a large storage building on the property next to them, which could be only a couple acres away. And it's all of a sudden, it's just a storage site and people are coming and going, bringing their, trailers and stuff in there.
Personal residence will lean more towards personal part of any kind of storage.
Yes,
Whereas if it's just storage, it could broaden out.
that's right. That's right.
Which is why we took out the mini storage as the definition under warehousing, because that insinuates renting them out.
Some ways to get around this, again, could be just thinking through if there should be a max size on there, since it is personal property. If we're considering it personal property, should there be a max size? And again, I don't know what that would be. Maybe that's some research that could be done, but at least just considering it. So if we're asked, if we make the change, we at least have a good answer on why we did what we did.
Would you also make the mat size maybe percentage of the lot? You could put a bigger building on a bigger lot.
Right now, it's 50% is what I read.
And that's most of
Okay.
the lots. And we can go to 25%, or urban ag and RAM have no minimum lot size. You can fill that sucker with a 5-acre building or a 500-acre building if you wanted. There's no minimum lot size other than the setbacks. And that's meant to be that way because it's further out of town. So there's less restrictions and more flexibility. Any further questions?
Is that it, or is there more for us?
No, that's it. If you want to see the buildings again, happy to show them to you.
Okay, that is the conclusion. All right, so what do you want from us tonight? Do you want to, we're gonna have a public hearing and all that kind of good stuff?
Oh yeah, we have to do that.
So do we have to, do we
have to
need
go
to open
through
it and
the-
close it just to say we did it?
Yeah, you need to do that. Ask for opposing approval and denial.
So this is to open the public hearing for consideration of tonight's application, and that is TA 260-01 Warehousing Edition. We just had the staff report. We're seeking public input. Again, this is public hearing. So there are no public in the audience tonight. 0. Unless anyone of you guys want to consider yourself public. We can't. So I'll ask if anyone wants to speak in favor. Obviously not. Nobody's here. I'll ask if anyone wants to speak in opposition. See no one? We done? All right, this is to close the public hearing for the application TA 2601 Warehousing Edition. So at this point, I would assume you're looking for a motion and a resolution to approve, deny, table. So what do you think, guys? More discussion?
Well, what are some of our options here if we table it, or it sounds like it might be a good idea to get the county commissioners to weigh in on this? Is that something that could be done, like a working meeting with them before it officially has to go to them, or?
So, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, if you table it, it doesn't go any further until you untable it. You can have us do more research if you'd like. But but it does not go to the commissioners until you untable it and you either deny or approve with conditions. Either way, you
What's the
can.
urgency here? What's the urgency, or is there any urgency?
There's not an urgency other than it won't go to the commissioners until April. Building season's been with us all winter, but usually getting into building season, having residents be able to do things they maybe desire to do. But there's really no urgency to
From
it.
the sounds of it, this whole situation is of the commissioners' making, correct? So chances are they've got a lot more detail than we have.
Potentially, but I mean, they didn't ask nearly as many questions as you all did. I presented this to them and said, this is what we'd like to do as a text amendment. Do you have any comments, concerns? We want to put it out for the public hearing for the 45 days. It's been out for 45 days for public hearing. We've had no comments whatsoever on it. We did have a realtor call the other day who kind of asked some questions, and our amazing planning technician, I just want to recognize again, has just brought it up to him that this is coming and is potentially going to be available. Like I said, he's a realtor, so to his customers. We never know if you guys are what you're going to decide or what questions you're going to ask. So we try and do our research so we can answer your questions. But as far as, there's no rush, but it's already been out for public comment, and the public knows it's going to the OCC in April.
So what changes do we have that we want to make? You mentioned changing SR to
I was
ZC,
trying to look at that, and I couldn't find my notes, but
adding personal property to the definition of warehousing. Size.
Yeah, like a maximum size, and I don't have one in mind, and I'm not, again, even arguing it should be one, but we should at least have thought it.
we could
thought
do
it
a
through.
25% lot, no more than 25% lot coverage.
Yeah, again, on 5 acres, it's still a huge building, and is that okay? I don't know, and
Well, 2 acres.
Do you
that's a huge
think
thing.
that someone's going to build that size of a building without building a house?
I'm saying anything that could happen could probably happen.
Acre, 40? Yeah.
I mean, you never know. Somebody could build. We live, where we live off of Coal Creek. Somebody's building a massive barn right now, a massive shop. It's really not a barn.
But look at the house next to it.
There is a house, but it doesn't have to be if we go this direction. And at least that's on a bigger lot. But if we're talking like a 2-acre lot, which is in the what we're talking about here, it could swamp that lot, even conforming to the setbacks, which are only 10 feet. So I'm just saying, if we go the way it's currently written, we're currently talking about, I think it could lead to problems. And so it just may take, maybe we spend another month. Sorry, you guys spend another month researching
We
it.
spent the last 3 months doing it, so we can spend whatever time you guys want.
But do you see
can,
do you see the issue, the potential issues here?
well, you
or-
could change it to 5 acres too, and that could be an amendment that you send forward to the commissioners if that's something that you think would be better.
I don't know,
Right.
because I've only looked at this, really honestly the last couple of days, and this is
45 days it's been out. I just want to remind you.
fair enough, but this isn't my expertise, and I haven't done any research what it should be. So I think we ought to at least think through it even a week or so, and just think through it. That's all I'm arguing.
So if you table it, that means it comes back to you next month. We would send out probably whatever, like all your concerns. And then you would decide, are you ready to talk about it again? It might come back in May. So it wouldn't have to come back next month. Or you can send your comments forward to the commission, or you can deny it. I mean, those are all your options for whatever you guys,
But it only comes back to us if we untake it though.
right, when you're ready.
I got another question along the way. Is there a cookbook for what you are doing here with this warehousing zone regulation? Did you go to a national database or something and come up with these details, or is this Natrona County, plain and simple?
So, Mr. Chairman, pretty much in Natrona County, I have multiple zoning resolutions from multiple counties
Uh-huh.
and look to see what they do. Some of them allow shops. Some of them have very relaxed regulations that I didn't think pertained to our county. Some are much more restrictive, which I also didn't think pertained to our county. So it's a kind of a combination, which is what we've kind of been looking at throughout. We're attached to this planning email for every planner across the county, and we get all kinds of information from each other.
Like a chat room, huh?
Yeah, basically, but it's over email. And we get to talk to each other about, well, what kind of regulations do you have on this or that? I've asked about subdivision regulations, so I can kind of tailor ours to where we can kind of meet in the middle, or stuff that we don't have, like lot line adjustments and minor boundary adjustments, is that we really don't have processes for. What do you have as a process? We provide each other with our Word documents, so you can cut and paste, tailor it to your county.
So you've already done that for this application?
Yeah, and there's not been a minimum size. Like I said, some of them allow it, some of them don't have zoning at all. So there are several counties around the state that don't have zoning. And so this doesn't even exist.
What do you guys think?
I'd be inclined to consider changing the minimum to 5 acres. Smaller lots, bigger buildings, you're gonna reach this congestion or this more conflict than if the bigger lots and things are now spread out more. There just seems to be a little bit more room to put a structure that's not gonna be
Overwhelming?
to the neighborhood.
And Sabrina, what about increasing the setbacks if somebody wants to build a warehouse without actually having a residence on the property? I mean, we certainly could do that. Is that a nightmare for your staff or not necessarily?
And no, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, that is one of the things that on our zoning section that we check on our OpenGov. It's one of the things, so it's in, they usually have the setbacks on the site plan. If they don't, usually the permit tax ask for that, because that's one of the things that they check on the application completeness, is they're checking to make sure that they have setbacks on there. So if they had, so we had one last week that had a setback of 25 feet on one side, and the minimum was 50. So we told them, hey, you just need to move your building 25 feet. Like, you can't put it there, but he had plenty of room. So, I mean, we could put it that this is, 50 feet. We have to put that in the language, 50 feet on all sides, or, maybe 100 feet on all sides. That could restrict some properties that they can't do it because there's rocks in the way, especially if it's on the mountain and it's in a certain location that might not be feasible. It just depends on the lot. If it's a minimum 5 acre, they probably have a lot of choices.
Get a variance process that'll
We do.
address those kind of things, those one-offs.
All right, Commissioner, what do you guys think? We approve, deny, table, approve with conditions?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I heard the question about doing more research, but I'm not sure, Sabrina, is there much more your office can do between now and next month? I mean, you've kind of looked at all that's available, have you not?
We have, and we're kind of doing a thing with AI with the county and kind of getting some rules set. So we've been kind of playing along with that and different ones, and even checked that like across the country. And I'll have you know, there's a place in New Mexico that charges $2,500 for a road name change. I'm not suggesting we do that, but that's what I found. So I found stuff like this, but just kind of like quirky things like that, and it is all over the place on stuff like this because states are so different and the communities are so different. You know, we're so different from Cheyenne, we're so different from Sheridan, we're so different from Douglas. There's hard comparisons on some things, so that's why we have you all and we have our Board of County Commissioners. So, and we can regulate, you know, per our guidance on what we want our county to be able to do. So the comparison's hard. That's why it's kind of, we just, what do you guys think? And do you like this? Do you not like this? And
You've got a grasp of our concerns, but would it help to have some time to look at maximum building size, minimum lot size, setback size, and look into which of those or a combination of those may be something to consider and rewrite? Because we may not need all of them. We may have some research that says, you know, or do we do all? I mean, you want to take some time to address any or all of those to see, to address the concerns that we've got.
I honestly don't think I'm going to find more information. I think it's a matter of what do you guys want it to say? Because I'm not going to find anything that's like the normal setback is 50 feet on this. It just there's so many different things that it's not what I'm going to find. When I was redoing the zoning resolution and when I was researching all the information in that one, as you guys know, we did have 400 some pages of that thing, but you know, the cell towers was one of those things that I was able to do a federal nationwide research on, that our setback was 100%. So a 300-foot cell tower had to be set back 600 feet. The common setback on that is 10%. So 330 feet for a 300-foot cell tower. Those things were common things that I was able to find. Setbacks are not. So I can do more research if that's what y'all want, but I don't think it's gonna find much.
I don't know that, I think research, or at least thinking it through a little bit more, could be helpful. But it does seem like it was kind of the default to say, well, whatever current restrictions are on a particular zone, I just use rural residential just because I was looking at it. We'll use the same thing for these warehouses that we're going to put in, and so right there, that tells me that maybe we haven't done enough thinking about, if we're just going to say it's the default of whatever is currently in the zone, because these are not sitting with a residence. I think it, to me anyways, but I don't, I'm not an expert in planning or zoning, but it does seem like it changes the dynamic a little bit, because it now is a storage for personal property. There's no house there. Presumably people aren't living there. And so what they do, I don't know. I mean, honestly, maybe they're not going to do what I'm talking about. They're going to build something that's responsible, or they could put some crazy stuff in there, because we didn't really think about what people might do. And so
Because of the fact they don't live there.
because they don't live
They don't
there,
have to look at it.
things are different now. And so that's all I'm saying is, research may not do it, but thinking through those consequences, and maybe you have, or maybe I'm just making all this up, but I think it just could take just a little bit more time to think through those issues.
All of the restrictions were definitely default per the zone.
Okay.
So in my mind, your credibility is even more enhanced, Mr. McNutt, from living out in the middle of where that's going on right now. So
Well,
that's,
so yes, that is true. Because I see, This is a little different, but I see houses that no one lives in now, but what they do is they park a trailer next to it and they live in the trailer next to the house. And so,
That's where you need to call code enforcement.
Yep.
And that's why we have code enforcement, is to enforce the things that aren't allowed in the zones, but if people don't tell us, we don't know.
but we're also not far from BB Brooks. And, I know there's some battles going on out there with,
But
so, you, like I said, anything that can happen probably will happen with these things. And so, again, just making sure we think through it. So if crazy stuff does happen, we can at least say, yeah, we thought about that and we knew this was going to happen and this is how we're going to deal with it, kind of thing.
these are already allowed in your area.
Yeah. And
So this is
the-
changing where you're at, because you're,
well, I do have rural residential next to us. We do have it.
you do, yes,
And so
that's true.
it could certainly happen, next to where I live.
And that was actually zoned that way because those lots, the size of those.
Yeah, they're about 5 acres or so. Yeah. Okay.
So there could be some regulations for warehousing that don't just default to what's already out there. You certainly
yeah.
could find that.
Yeah.
And we could at least look at it.
Did I hear a little voice? Somebody say something about tabling?
If we table it, do we need to make any special recommendations or to say for the staff to go back and to address some of these things that we've discussed?
You can, if you'd like, or we have everything that you've already discussed. If there's specific things you want to look at, then let us know specifically, if like a height requirement or a max building size requirement or whatever, setbacks. Let us know specifically that. Otherwise, we'll look at what you guys have already discussed.
So what I heard Chad say also was that we need more time just to think through the whole thing without, just covering what we talked about tonight. So maybe other things will, sleeping on it, wake up and say, oh yeah, forgot about that. Is that what I hear you say?
If you're going to do that, I'm going to ask you to communicate those concerns with us or anything that you guys do find and respond to my emails when I bombard you, because I'm going to need feedback from you and see where you're at so we can accommodate what you guys want.
So Sabrina, what are the setbacks on all these different, is it the side and back? Is that, what are the setback limits currently?
It depends on the zone. Most of them are 25 feet from a public road. Very questionable on what a public road is. Coal Creek's a public road. Gary Dome's questionable. That's a whole nother story. But like a private road, usually it's 10 feet. But it says in the chart in chapter 2, each zone has the setbacks.
So if you want some feedback, I would think that I don't envision that the setback from the road would need to be that much different, but from the side and the back, maybe double, because we're talking bigger lots. So I would entertain that type of change if it came before us. And I would also be more inclined to a 5-acre lot as a minimum size. I don't know if the group, if you brought that to us and somebody wanted to make it 2, they could amend it.
So I guess I'm getting mixed signals. I heard we're talking about tabling, and then we're continuing to talk about what ifs.
Right, that's true. So you can make an approval with conditions, as was mentioned, which we can take to BOCC. you know, we want to amend 5 acres, we want the setbacks to be double on all the zones. Or we can go back, change it, bring it back to you guys. So then there's no amendments.
I, for one, would be willing to keep an eye open for your emails to let you know what I'm thinking between now and whenever we bring it up again. I assume April.
I'm kind of agreeing with Chad. It's not necessarily the changes right now, it's just time. Just more time.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we table TA 26-01 warehousing addition and that the staff look at the setback and the minimum lot size as we did this evening.
To a date certain, with a date certain specification?
Yeah, for the April meeting.
Does that work for staff? Okay,
Mr.
Chair would
Chair,
entertain a second.
can I amend that motion to also look at, I'm not going to know the term for this, but the requirements for each zone. It's just so we know, and again, if we're looking at max lot size or maximum lot coverage, so look at the size of these buildings in the context of those requirements for each zone, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so I'll leave it at that since we're making a motion.
So, do you accept that, Ray?
I accept that amendment.
As part of your original motion, or do we need to call it an amendment?
I will accept that as part of the original motion.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion.
A second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to table. I don't think there's any discussion that goes along with that, so we'll call the question. All in favor signify by saying, all in favor of tabling until April 14th, 2026, Natrona County Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So there's unanimous recommendation to county commissioners that we table the warehousing discussion until the next meeting. All right, public comments or communications?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was asked by the county commissioners at the meeting last week to thank you all for it was the major subdivision for the Christensen addition and the research that with you guys tabling it, the research we were able to put into it, that they appreciated all of your guys' input and wanted me to relay that to you.
Well done. Yeah, that was the deal. We had to figure out all those public streets or rights of way or whatever, huh? All right. Public comment? Anything else for us, staff? Anything among us, commissioners? Nothing here. Chair would entertain a comment for adjournment. Chair would entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second?
Motion and a second to adjourn at 6:40 PM. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?